When I was 25, I was broke. I had a family to feed, bills to pay, and nothing in the bank. And I thought the answer was to work harder at my job. But I found out the hard way you can work hard at your job and still stay broke. The turning point came when my mentor said, "Jim, don't work harder on your job. Work harder on yourself." That one idea changed my life forever. In this video, I'm going to show you how to become more valuable than your job. You'll discover why your personal development always outruns your paycheck, why working harder on yourself creates opportunities your job never could, and how to raise your value in the marketplace so you're never trapped by wages again. If you've ever felt stuck, underpaid, or overlooked, this will give you the philosophy and the daily disciplines to change that. Because the truth is, you don't get paid for time, you get paid for value. And the good news is, value can be increased. Let's be honest. Most people spend their whole lives working hard, but never getting ahead. They think if they just clock more hours, things will change. But they don't. They think if they stay loyal to the company long enough, things will change. But they don't. The frustration builds, and they wonder, why am I stuck? And here's the simple answer. Because they're working harder on their job than on themselves. The marketplace rewards value, and value is something you build inside yourself. That's the truth most people never catch. And that's why they never rise. But once you do catch it, once you decide to build yourself, doors begin to open. So here's what we're going to cover in the next 80 minutes. I'm going to share the philosophy that turned me from broke and frustrated into financially free. We'll talk about why income is tied to value, not time. We'll explore the habits and disciplines that raise your worth in the marketplace. We'll look at why formal education makes you a living, but self-education makes you a fortune. We'll talk about skills, character, and influence, and how each one can multiply your opportunities. Along the way, I'll tell you stories from my own journey, the mistakes I made, the lessons I learned, and the challenges my mentor gave me that changed everything. And before we're done, I'll leave you with a plan to raise your value so high that your job will never define you again. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could be the turning point between staying stuck in wages or stepping into wealth. Now, here's something most people completely miss. They think their income is tied to the hours they work. They think the more hours they put in, the more they should earn. And if they don't get paid more, they blame the company, the boss, or the economy. But here's the truth. You don't get paid for time. You get paid for value. That's the law of the marketplace. And once you understand that, it changes the way you think about work, about growth, about your whole future. Because time by itself is cheap. Value is what makes time expensive. Let me set the stakes. Two people can work in the same office, under the same roof, with the same boss. One earns 10 times more than the other. How can that be? They both work 8 hours a day. They both show up on time. They both clock in and clock out. But the marketplace doesn't reward effort equally. It rewards results differently. The difference isn't hours. The difference is value. And until you raise your value, your income will stay the same. No matter how sincere you are, no matter how loyal you are, no matter how much you complain about being underpaid. Now you might be thinking, but Jim, I've been working hard for years. I put in the time. And I understand that. I was there once too. At 25, I was broke. Working hard, putting in the hours, doing what I thought was right, but I had nothing to show for it. No money in the bank, no results that matched my effort. And I learned the hard truth. Hard work at the job doesn't automatically equal wealth. It might keep you alive, but it won't make you rich. What makes you rich is working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because when you increase yourself, you increase your value. And when you increase your value, the marketplace has no choice but to reward you. So what exactly does that mean? It means you stop measuring your life in hours and start measuring it in growth. It means instead of asking, how many hours did I work? You ask, how much value did I create? How much did I grow? How much wiser, stronger, sharper am I today than I was yesterday? Because the truth is, if you don't become more, you'll always be worth the same. And if you're worth the same, you'll always be paid the same. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a craftsman with two tools. One is dull, worn down, barely cuts. The other is sharp, precise, powerful. They both take the same time to use, but the results are completely different. The sharp tool gets 10 times the work done in the same hour. Now, which one do you think the marketplace rewards? It's the same with people. If your mind is dull, if your skills are dull, if your habits are dull, you'll produce little, no matter how many hours you put in. But if you sharpen yourself, if you grow, if you increase your knowledge and your ability, suddenly 1 hour of your time is worth 10 hours of someone else's. And that's how you increase your income. You increase your value. So here's the challenge. Stop trading time for wages and start trading value for rewards. If you want to double your income, don't beg for it, don't demand it, don't even ask for it. Become the kind of person who deserves it. Develop yourself until the marketplace says, we can't afford to pay you less. You bring too much value. That's the secret. And remember, sincerity isn't enough. Hard work isn't enough. Time isn't enough. Only value is enough. You want to outgrow your paycheck? Then outgrow yourself. Raise your philosophy, raise your skills, raise your discipline, because the marketplace pays for value, not time. And once you see that, once you accept that truth, you begin to realize why school alone will never make you rich. School makes you employable, but self-education makes you wealthy. And that's exactly where I want to take you next. Now, here's something that might sound a little unusual at first, but once you catch it, it'll stay with you for life. Formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. And isn't that the whole point? You don't want to just make a living, you want to design a life. You want freedom, you want options, you want to be able to go where you want to go, do what you want to do, give what you want to give. And you'll never get that from formal education alone. Now, don't misunderstand me. School is important. It gives you the basics. It teaches you how to read, how to write, how to work with numbers, how to think in certain ways, and all of that is valuable. But here's the limitation. Formal education prepares you to fit into the system, to follow instructions, to do a job, to make a living. It rarely prepares you to build wealth, to create opportunity, to become extraordinary. That part is left to you. That's where self-education comes in. That's where you decide to take responsibility for your own growth. Why is this so critical? Because the world is full of people with degrees who are still broke. People who spent years in classrooms, who collected diplomas and certificates, but who never learned the disciplines of wealth. They never studied personal development. They never built philosophy. They never invested in themselves beyond the classroom. And the marketplace doesn't reward pieces of paper, it rewards value. If you want to outgrow wages and step into wealth, you've got to go beyond the school's curriculum and build your own. That's what I had to learn. At 25, I didn't have much formal education, but I discovered a whole new world when I walked into a library and signed up for a library card. That little card cost me nothing, but it opened the door to everything. Because for the first time, I realized I could sit down with the greatest minds in history for free. I could read their books. I could absorb their wisdom. I could study their philosophies. And that was the beginning of my fortune. Not because I got a degree, but because I got an education beyond the classroom. And it didn't stop with books. I bought journals and started writing down everything I learned. I wrote quotes, lessons, ideas, goals. Those journals became my personal treasure chest. Years later, I look back and realized they were worth more than money in the bank because they contained the very thoughts and philosophies that built the money in the bank. If you want to know how serious I became, let me tell you this. When I traveled, I made sure my journals went with me because I considered them more valuable than clothes. And even today, if someone said my house was on fire and I could only save one thing, I'd save those journals. That's how much I valued my self-education. So let me give you a contrast. Imagine two young people starting at the same job. Both get the same paycheck. One finishes school, puts the books away, and spends the evenings on entertainment. The other keeps reading, keeps journaling, keeps studying, keeps attending seminars, keeps asking questions, keeps seeking mentors. Give them 10 years, and the difference will be astonishing. One is still stuck at the same level. The other has outgrown the job entirely. Same starting point, completely different outcome. Why? Because one relied only on formal education, the other embraced self-education. Here's the point: school can open the door, but self-education keeps you walking through. School may give you the basics, but self-education gives you the edge. And in the marketplace, it's the edge that counts, because wages will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. So here's my challenge. Don't stop learning just because you finished school. In fact, that's when the real learning begins. Build your own library. Fill it with books that stretch you, that challenge you, that force you to think bigger. Keep a journal. Capture every lesson, every insight, every idea that stirs you. Attend seminars. Listen to recordings. Sit at the feet of mentors, even if only through their words. Make self-education your lifelong discipline. Because once you decide to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, that's when your life begins to change. And that's exactly where I want to take you next. Now, here's a phrase that changed my life the very first time I heard it. My mentor looked me in the eye and said, "Jim, don't work harder on your job than you do on yourself." At first, I didn't quite understand. I thought the job was the answer. I thought if I just worked more hours, showed up earlier, stayed later, gave it all I had at the office, things would turn around. But I discovered the hard truth. You can work hard at your job and still stay broke. You can give your company everything you've got and still have nothing left for yourself. And when you're gone, they'll replace you by Monday. So the secret isn't working harder on your job. The secret is working harder on yourself. Because your job will make you a living. But working on yourself will make you a fortune. Why is this so important? Because your income rarely exceeds your level of personal development. If you don't grow, your paycheck won't grow. If you don't add value to yourself, you can't add value to the marketplace. And the marketplace only rewards value. That's the law. You can't cheat it. You can't escape it. You can't wish it away. If you want to change your income, you have to change yourself. Think about this. If you take a man making $5 an hour and you want him to make 10, all you have to do is double his value. Double his skill, double his knowledge, double his discipline, and the marketplace will gladly double his pay. But if he stays the same person, no amount of complaining, no amount of hoping, no amount of demanding will ever raise that wage. The paycheck follows the person, not the other way around. That's why the greatest investment you can ever make is not in a company, not in stocks, not even in property. It's in yourself. Let me give you a story. At 25 years old, I was broke. I was embarrassed. I had a family to feed, promises I couldn't keep, bills I couldn't pay. And I thought the solution was to just grind harder at my job. But I soon realized I was wrong, because no matter how hard I worked, nothing changed. Then my mentor said, "If you want things to change, you have to change. If you want things to get better, you have to get better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom." And when I finally caught that truth, I knew the answer wasn't out there, it was in here. The answer was me. So what does it mean to work harder on yourself? It means reading the books that expand your mind. It means listening to the voices of people who have done what you want to do. It means writing down your goals, your ideas, your lessons, until your philosophy sharpens. It means developing the skills that make you valuable in any room: communication, leadership, discipline, influence. It means exercising the discipline to rise early, to guard your time, to use your evenings for growth instead of wasting them. It means building yourself into someone the marketplace cannot ignore. And here's the beautiful part: no one can take that from you. They can take your job, they can take your title, they can even take your company. But they can never take what you've become. They can never take the skills you've built, the philosophy you've learned, the discipline you've practiced. That's yours. And that's why working harder on yourself pays dividends long after the job is gone. So let me challenge you, take a good look at your schedule. How many hours do you give your job? And how many do you give yourself? If you're giving 40, 50, 60 hours a week to the company and 0 to yourself, no wonder you're stuck. Start by reversing that ratio just a little. Take 1 hour a day, at least, for you. Read, study, plan, reflect, train, build yourself. Because that hour invested in yourself will do more for your future than 60 hours invested at your job. And once you've started working harder on yourself than you do on your job, then you'll begin to see another truth clearly. That your philosophy, the way you think, the way you set your sail, matters even more than your circumstances. Because the same winds blow on us all, but the set of the sail determines where we arrive. And that's exactly what I want to show you next. Now, here's something I learned from my mentor that changed the way I looked at life forever. He said, "Jim, the same winds blow on us all. The winds of change, the winds of opportunity, the winds of difficulty, the winds of challenge. They blow on the rich, they blow on the poor, they blow on the educated, they blow on the uneducated. The winds don't discriminate. They blow on us all. But here's the secret. The wind doesn't determine your destination. The set of the sail does. And when I first heard that, it stopped me in my tracks. Because up until then, I was blaming everything else. The company, the economy, the government, my circumstances. I thought the reason I was broke was because the winds were against me. But the truth was, it wasn't the winds. It was the way I had my sails set. Now, why is this so important? Because most people spend their lives waiting for the winds to change. They say, if only the government would fix things, if only my company would pay more, if only the economy would improve, if only my luck would turn. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait, hoping the winds will blow in their favor. But here's the tragedy. Sometimes the winds never change. Sometimes they blow harsh. Sometimes they blow cold. Sometimes they knock you off course. And if you're waiting for perfect winds, you'll be waiting forever. The key isn't to wait for the winds to change. The key is to adjust your sail. Think about it. Two people live in the same city, in the same economy, under the same government. One prospers, the other struggles. One builds wealth, the other builds excuses. What's the difference? Not the wind. It's the set of the sail. One adjusted, one didn't. And that's the law of life. Your philosophy is your sail. If your philosophy is weak, if it's negative, if it's full of blame and excuses, then even favorable winds can't take you far. But if your philosophy is strong, disciplined, and optimistic, you can make progress no matter how the winds blow. I'll never forget the day it hit me personally. I was 25 years old, broke, behind on my promises, and embarrassed. A little Girl Scout came to my door selling cookies, and I didn't have $2 to buy a box. I lied to her. I said, I've already bought some. The truth was, I was broke. After she left, I sat in my chair and thought, what a way to live lying to a Girl Scout because you don't have $2 in your pocket. And I realized the problem wasn't the job. The problem wasn't the economy. The problem wasn't the winds. The problem was me, my philosophy, the way I was setting my sail. That night I decided, never again. I would never be embarrassed like that again. I would change. I would adjust my philosophy, because if I changed, everything would change. And that's the beautiful thing. Once you accept that truth, you stop being a victim of the wind. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you. You stop blaming and you start adjusting. And the moment you start adjusting, life starts to respond. Because here's the law, the winds will always blow, but the sail determines the direction. So let me ask you, how is your sail set right now? Are you waiting for luck, waiting for circumstances, waiting for someone to come along and fix it for you? Or are you ready to grab the ropes, tighten the sail, and change direction yourself? Because the choice is yours. And here's the best part, you can make that choice tonight. You can decide that from this day forward, no matter what the winds are, you'll adjust your philosophy. You'll read the books. You'll listen to the voices of wisdom. You'll surround yourself with people who challenge you. You'll take responsibility. And when you do, you'll be amazed at how far you can go, even in the very same winds that keep others stuck. And once you begin to see that your philosophy is the real steering wheel of your life, then you'll also see something else clearly, that your value grows only as your skills grow, that the marketplace multiplies those who multiply themselves. And that's exactly where I want to take you next. Now, let me show you another piece of the puzzle. Because once you've adjusted your philosophy, once you've learned to set your sail, you've still got to build the ship that carries you forward. And that ship is made of skills. Your skills are your tools. They are your personal assets. They're what the marketplace pays for. And the good news is, skills can be learned. Skills can be sharpened. Skills can be multiplied. But the tragedy is, most people stop learning after school. They think their diploma is the finish line, when in reality, it's just the starting point. And that's why so many stay stuck. They rely on old tools while the world is moving forward with new ones. Let me set the stakes for you. Imagine two carpenters. One has an old, dull saw, bent nails, rusty tools. He works hard, he sweats, he struggles, he puts in the hours, but his results are poor. The other has sharp tools, polished and ready. He's trained his hands to use them well. He works the same hours, but his output is 10 times greater. His craftsmanship 10 times finer. Now, who do you think the marketplace rewards? Not the one who sweats more, but the one who learned to use his tools better. And life is the same. If your skills are dull, you'll struggle no matter how many hours you work. But if your skills are sharp, if you've invested the time to grow them, the same hours can produce extraordinary results. Now, here's why this is so critical. Skills multiply your effort. One new skill can double your income. One improved skill can open doors you didn't even know existed. Learn to communicate well, and suddenly you're leading instead of following. Learn to manage your time, and suddenly you're accomplishing in one day what used to take you a week. Learn to sell, and suddenly you can move any product, any idea, any vision. Learn to lead, and suddenly you're not just earning wages. You're building teams, building companies, building legacies. Every new skill you develop is another asset in your portfolio. And unlike money, no one can take those assets from you. I'll give you a personal example. When I was young, I was shy. I didn't know how to speak to a group. But I learned, I studied communication, I practiced, I stumbled, I kept going. And eventually, that one skill, speaking, opened doors around the world. One skill, and the marketplace paid for it handsomely. And the truth is, anyone can do it. Anyone can learn a skill if they decide to. Now, I know what some people say. Jim, I don't have time. Jim, I'm too busy working. But here's the irony. If you don't take time to sharpen your skills, you'll always be too busy working. Because you'll always be trading time for too little reward. But the moment you pause, the moment you invest in learning, the moment you sharpen your saw, suddenly your time is worth more. You get paid more, respected more, valued more. That's why self-education is so powerful. It's not just about what you know, it's about what you can do with what you know. So here's the challenge. Take inventory of your skills. Write them down. Ask yourself, which ones make me valuable? Which ones are weak? Which ones could I develop that would multiply my value in the marketplace? Maybe it's communication. Maybe it's leadership. Maybe it's discipline. Maybe it's technical knowledge. Maybe it's people skills. Whatever it is, pick one and start sharpening it today. Because the sharper your tools, the bigger your harvest. And remember, skills plus philosophy equals value. Value equals income. And income equals freedom. That's the chain. If you want to become more valuable than your job, build more assets inside yourself than the company could ever pay for. Become the kind of person the marketplace cannot ignore. And once you begin to build those skills, once you treat them as personal assets, then you'll see something else very clearly, that the way you use those skills day after day, in the smallest of routines, is what ultimately shapes your destiny. And that's exactly where we're going next. Now, here's something I want you to really think about, because it's one of the great dividing lines between success and failure, between wealth and poverty, between a life of satisfaction and a life of regret. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. That's it. No mystery, no magic, no secrets hidden away in some vault. Just simple disciplines on one side, simple errors on the other. The scary part is they both feel the same in the beginning. That's why people miss it. Let me explain. Imagine this. You decide tonight to read 10 pages of a good book. Will your life be transformed tomorrow morning? No, probably not. The change is invisible. But what if you decide not to read those 10 pages? Will your life fall apart overnight? No, nothing happens. And that's why people neglect the discipline. They think it doesn't matter. But here's the truth. It does matter. Because if you repeat that neglect for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, you've lost the opportunity to absorb dozens of books, hundreds of ideas, thousands of hours of wisdom, and you don't notice the loss until it's too late. That's the danger of errors in judgment. They don't ruin you today, but they add up. And by the time the bill comes due, it's far too late to pay it back. Now flip it around. 10 pages a day doesn't look like much, but compound it over time and suddenly you're a different person. In a year, you've read a dozen books. In 5 years, 60. In 10 years, 120. And if they're the right books, the kind that shape philosophy and sharpen skills, then by the end of those 10 years, you're not even the same person anymore. Your thinking is different. Your habits are different. Your results are different. And it all started with a small discipline that looked invisible at the time. And here's what makes this so powerful. You don't have to overhaul your entire life in a day. You don't have to change everything at once. All you need to do is identify a few simple disciplines and practice them daily. Read the 10 pages, save the $10, make the 10 calls, write the 1 page. Practice the skill for 15 minutes. They're so small, they almost feel like nothing. But the secret is they add up, they compound, they multiply, and soon they separate you from the crowd. Because while others are neglecting, you're practicing. While others are wasting, you're investing. While others are drifting, you're building. And eventually, the gap becomes enormous. Let me tell you something my mentor said that stayed with me forever. He said, Jim, neglect is like an infection. It doesn't kill you overnight, but left unchecked. It spreads, it grows, it weakens everything. And one day you wake up and the damage is done. And he was right. Neglecting the small things today leads to collapse tomorrow. But discipline is the cure. Discipline is the vaccine. Discipline is the protection that keeps you strong, steady, moving forward. So here's the challenge. Look at your daily routine. Not your occasional bursts of effort. Not your big goals written on a wall. But your actual day-to-day routine. Ask yourself, what are the small errors I'm repeating? Maybe it's skipping the book. Maybe it's spending instead of saving. Maybe it's sleeping in when you promised yourself you'd rise early. Those are errors, and they're stealing your future one day at a time. Then ask, what are the small disciplines I could replace them with? And don't underestimate how small they can be. Start with one, because one small discipline done daily is worth 1,000 grand plans never acted on. And remember, mediocrity doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in quietly, in small neglects. But so does excellence. Excellence doesn't arrive in one dramatic moment. It's built slowly in daily disciplines. And the good news is you get to choose. Every day, you're sowing seeds. The only question is, are they seeds of neglect or seeds of discipline? Because the harvest will come and it will tell the truth. And once you see this clearly, once you realize how much your future is hidden in your daily routine, you'll start to guard your days more carefully. And that brings us to another great truth, that time is more valuable than money. Because money you can replace, but time, once it's gone, is gone forever. And that's exactly what I want to show you next. Now, let me share with you one of the greatest lessons I ever learned about time. Money is valuable, of course, but money is replaceable. You can lose it and earn it back. You can spend it and earn more. Time is different. Time, once gone, is gone forever. And that's why I say time is more valuable than money. If you waste money, you might recover. If you waste time, it's gone, and there's no refund. That's why the key to success isn't just managing your money. It's managing your days. It's learning not just to get through the day, but to get from the day. Because each day holds lessons, experiences, opportunities, and if you don't capture them, they vanish. Now here's the problem. Most people just get through the day. They wake up, go to work, come home, collapse in front of the television, go to bed, and repeat. And weeks turn into months, months into years, years into decades, and suddenly they wonder where life went. They were busy, yes. They put in the hours, yes. But they didn't grow. They didn't extract the value from their days. They just passed time instead of investing it. And the tragedy is, time will pass whether you use it or not. The difference between success and mediocrity is whether you harvest from it or waste it. So, how do you get from the day instead of just through it? First, you pay attention. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I learn today? What mistake did I make, and what lesson did it teach me? What victory did I earn, and how can I repeat it? What idea did I hear, and how can I apply it? Because every day leaves behind something. If you capture it, you grow. If you ignore it, you drift. And the best way to capture it is to write it down. That's why I've always said, don't trust your memory. It's too short. Put it on paper. Keep a journal. I'll tell you, my journals became some of my greatest treasures. They were more valuable to me than money because they contained the lessons that made the money. When I traveled, I carried them with me. When I moved, they were the first thing I packed. Because inside those journals were years of notes, insights, ideas, reminders of the days I had lived and the wisdom I had gained. If you want to measure your progress, go back and read what you wrote 5 years ago. You'll see how far you've come or how far you've failed to come. That's the power of journaling. It lets you get from the day what others leave behind. And here's another way. Be intentional with your hours. Don't just spend time, invest it. Spending time is when you use it without return. Investing time is when you put it into something that grows. An hour spent reading, growing, practicing a skill, that's an investment. An hour wasted, scrolling, gossiping, or complaining, that's an expense with no return. The marketplace rewards those who invest their hours wisely. That's why two people can both be given the same 24 hours, but one builds wealth and wisdom, while the other builds excuses. Let me ask you, what are you doing with your evenings? That's the test, because everyone gives their days to the job, but the evenings are yours. One person spends them on entertainment, the other on education. One spends them numbing themselves, the other spends them sharpening themselves. And when you fast forward 10 years, you see the gap. That's why I say, be careful with your evenings. Be careful with your hours. They're either building your future or stealing it. So here's the challenge. Start tonight. When the day is done, don't just close it and forget it. Review it. Write down one lesson, one thought, one discipline you practiced, or one error you want to correct. Then make a small plan for tomorrow. That way, every day becomes a teacher, and you become the student who keeps growing, because days will add up whether you use them or not. Better to have them add up to wisdom, wealth, and progress than to regret and wasted years. And once you begin to value your time more than your money, once you learn to capture each day before it slips away, you'll see another great truth. Life is governed by the law of sowing and reaping, because time is the soil and discipline is the seed, and whatever you plant, life will multiply. And that's exactly where we're going next. Now, here's a law that governs all of life. It governs the farmer in the field, the student in the classroom, the worker on the job, the investor in the market. It's the law of sowing and reaping. And once you understand this law, you'll never see life the same again. The law is simple. You reap what you sow. You reap more than you sow. And you reap later than you sow. That's it. 3 parts. But those 3 truths can explain success and failure better than almost anything else I know. Let's start with the first one. You reap what you sow. That means you don't plant weeds and get wheat. You don't plant laziness and reap achievement. You don't plant neglect and reap discipline. Life doesn't work that way. The harvest always matches the seed. And that's why I say every thought, every word, every action is a seed. Sow excuses, reap regret. Sow discipline, reap wealth. Sow learning, reap growth. Sow waste, reap poverty. The soil doesn't lie. It gives you back what you give it. Now, the second truth, you reap more than you sow. This is the multiplier effect. You plant 1 seed of corn, and you don't just get 1 kernel back. You get a stalk with ears, with hundreds of kernels. The return is always greater than the planting, and life works the same way. 1 act of discipline today can produce years of benefit. 1 hour of reading can spark an idea that makes you wealthy. $1 saved can grow into thousands over time. But it also works in reverse. 1 act of neglect can multiply into years of trouble. 1 careless word can destroy a relationship. 1 foolish habit can ruin your health. That's the law. You always reap more than you sow. And the third truth, you reap later than you sow. And this is where most people stumble, because they plant today and expect a harvest tomorrow. They read 1 book, and when their life doesn't change in a week, they quit. They save for a month, and when they're not rich, they spend it again. They work hard for a season, and when they don't see results, they give up. But the farmer knows planting takes a moment, growing takes time, harvesting takes patience. You don't plant in spring and reap in summer. You wait until autumn, and so it is with discipline. You may not see the fruit right away, but if you stay consistent, if you guard the seed, if you keep sowing, the harvest will surely come. Let me give you a picture. Imagine 2 neighbors in springtime. One is out early, turning the soil, planting seeds, watering, preparing. The other sits on his porch saying, "It's too much work. Maybe next year." By summer, one is busy protecting his field from weeds and pests, while the other is still sitting, waiting for conditions to be perfect. And when autumn comes, one has baskets overflowing with grain, and the other has nothing but excuses. That's not fate. That's not luck. That's the law of sowing and reaping. Now, here's why this matters to you. Every day, you're sowing seeds, whether you realize it or not. The question is not whether you're sowing, but what you're sowing. And you can't trick the soil. If you plant weeds, weeds will grow. If you plant discipline, discipline will grow. If you plant neglect, neglect will grow. And the harvest will come. It always comes. The law is relentless, but it is also fair. It rewards anyone who practices it, and it punishes anyone who ignores it. So let me ask you, what are you sowing right now? Look at your habits. Look at your evenings. Look at the way you use your time, your money, your energy, because all of that is seed. And in time, you'll have a harvest to face. Will it be a harvest of regret or a harvest of abundance? That's up to you. And here's the good news. You can start a new harvest anytime. If you don't like the crop you're reaping, change the seed you're sowing. If you've been planting excuses, start planting responsibility. If you've been planting waste, start planting discipline. If you've been planting neglect, start planting action. Because the soil doesn't care who you are, it simply multiplies whatever you put in it. And once you really understand this, once you see how the law of sowing and reaping governs everything, then you'll also see why your environment, your associations, the people you spend time with, matter so much. Because their seeds fall into your soil too. And that's exactly where I want to take you next. Now let me show you another secret that can either build your future or destroy it. It's the power of associations. Here's what I discovered early in my life. You become like the people you spend the most time with. It's almost impossible to avoid it. Their thinking rubs off on you. Their habits rub off on you. Their language rubs off on you. Their philosophy rubs off on you. You may not even notice it happening, but over time, you will start to look like the company you keep. That's why I always say you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, why is this so critical? Because no matter how strong you think you are, your environment will influence you. If you spend your time with people who complain, before long you'll be complaining. If you spend your time with people who make excuses, soon you'll have a list of excuses yourself. If you spend your time with people who waste their evenings, pretty soon you'll waste yours. And here's the danger: it feels normal. Because when everyone around you is doing it, you don't even notice. But the results show up in your life. Their seeds fall into your soil, and the harvest comes due. On the other hand, if you associate with people of discipline, people of ambition, people of integrity, people who are constantly learning, growing, investing in themselves, guess what happens? Their habits start to rub off on you too. You start to think bigger, act stronger, move faster, become sharper. And in time, your life begins to reflect their influence. That's the power of associations. They either pull you up or drag you down. They either challenge you to greatness or lull you into mediocrity. And you have to decide which it will be. Let me give you a picture. Think of a tree planted in poor soil. It struggles. Its roots are weak. It barely grows. But take that same tree and transplant it into rich soil, full of nutrients, surrounded by water and sunlight, and suddenly it flourishes. Nothing changed about the tree itself. It was the environment that made the difference. And you are the same. You are the tree. Your associations are the soil. If you plant yourself in bad soil, you will struggle, no matter how strong you try to be. But if you plant yourself in good soil around mentors, around achievers, around disciplined people, you'll grow whether you realize it or not. And I'll tell you something else. Sometimes the hardest discipline of all is distancing yourself from the wrong crowd. Because maybe they're friends, maybe they're family, maybe you've known them for years. But if they're poisoning your soil, you have to choose. Stay and struggle, or leave and grow. Because your destiny is too valuable to sacrifice for the comfort of poor company. So here's the challenge. Take inventory of your associations. Write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Then ask yourself, are they building me or are they breaking me? Are they feeding my dreams or are they feeding my excuses? Are they sharpening me or are they dulling me? And if you don't like the answers, you need to make a change because the soil is too important to ignore. Now, once you surround yourself with the right people, once you choose an environment of growth, you'll notice something powerful. It's easier to stay disciplined when you're not alone. It's easier to rise early when your friends rise early. It's easier to read when the people around you are talking about what they're reading. It's easier to succeed when everyone in your circle is moving in the same direction. That's why associations matter so much. They make discipline contagious. And once you see that, once you feel the influence of the right company shaping your habits, then you'll begin to understand the next great truth, that discipline is not punishment. It's training. It's the process of shaping your character until you can be trusted with greater responsibility, greater influence, greater wealth. And that's exactly what I want to share with you next. Now, let me take you to the heart of it all. Because when it comes down to it, discipline is not punishment. Discipline is training. Discipline is the process by which you shape your character, and character is the foundation of everything else. Your wealth, your reputation, your influence, your relationships. Without character, success is temporary at best and destructive at worst. But with character, success becomes lasting, meaningful, and deeply rewarding. And here's the key. Character is built not in public, but in private. It's built in the quiet moments when nobody's watching, when no one will applaud you, when no one will even notice. But you notice, and that's what matters. Why is this so important? Because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you add another brick to the foundation of your character. You say you'll rise early, and you do it, builds character. You say you'll read 10 pages, and you do it, builds character. You say you'll save $10, and you do it, builds character. These small private victories don't seem like much, but they accumulate. They form the unseen backbone of your life. And eventually, people can feel it. They may not know exactly why they trust you, respect you, or follow you, but they do, because character shines through. On the other hand, every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you say you'll do something and you don't, you chip away at that foundation. And soon you stop believing yourself. And when you no longer believe yourself, how can you expect others to believe in you? That's why discipline is so powerful. It builds credibility, first with yourself, then with everyone else. Let me give you a picture. Think of a kite. A kite doesn't rise because the wind is gentle. A kite rises because it goes against the wind. It's the resistance that lifts it higher. And so it is with discipline. Discipline is the resistance you apply to your own desires, your own laziness, your own excuses. And it is precisely that resistance that makes you stronger, that builds your character, that lifts you higher. Most people run from resistance, looking for the easy path, the smooth road, the comfortable choice. But here's the irony. It's the very resistance they avoid that could have made them great. Now here's something I learned. Reputation is what people think of you, but character is what you think of yourself. And over time, character becomes reputation. If you are disciplined in private, if you keep your word when no one is watching, if you stay faithful to the small commitments, eventually the world will know you as a person of character. And when you are a person of character, opportunities find you, trust finds you, wealth finds you, because people are drawn to those who can be trusted. So let me ask you, what promises have you been breaking to yourself? What small disciplines have you been neglecting? Because those are not small things. They are the seeds of your character. And if you want to be trusted with more, if you want to lead, if you want to succeed, you've got to start by keeping the promises you make to yourself. And here's the good news. Character can be rebuilt. Maybe you've failed. Maybe you've fallen short. Maybe you've let yourself down. But you can start again. Start with one promise today. Keep it. Then keep another tomorrow. And little by little, brick by brick, the foundation of your character is rebuilt. And once it's strong, mediocrity has no place in your life. Excuses lose their power. Comfort loses its grip. Because you've built the kind of character that discipline creates. And when you reach that point, when discipline has shaped your character and character has built your reputation, you become indispensable. Not to a company, not to a paycheck, but to the marketplace itself. Because no matter where you go, your value follows you. And that's exactly what I want to show you next. Now, here's a truth that shook me when I first heard it, and I want it to shake you too. Your job is not designed to make you rich. Your job is designed to make you a living, and that's fine, nothing wrong with that. A job puts food on the table, clothes on your back, pays the rent, keeps the lights on. But if that's all you rely on, if you give your job everything and give yourself nothing, you'll spend your life trading hours for dollars and never get ahead. The secret is not to become more loyal to the company, it's to become more valuable than your job. Because here's the truth. Jobs come and go. Companies rise and fall. Industries change. But the value you build inside yourself goes with you everywhere. Think about it. How many people do you know who gave their best years to a company only to see it close its doors, or to see themselves replaced by someone younger, faster, cheaper? And then what? If all you had was the job, if all you built was loyalty to the company, you're left with nothing. But if you've spent those years building yourself, building skills, building philosophy, building discipline, then when the company is gone, you still have your value. And the marketplace will always pay for value. I learned this the hard way. In my early years, I thought the answer was to keep my head down, work hard, and wait for the company to notice me. But I discovered companies don't always notice. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're too busy. Sometimes they're struggling themselves. And I realized if I wanted to rise, I couldn't wait for someone else to give me permission. I had to give myself permission. I had to outgrow the job. And the moment I did, doors began to open. Not because the job changed, but because I changed. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two employees in the same department. One does exactly what he's told, nothing more, nothing less. He puts in the hours, collects the paycheck, goes home. The other does the same work, but in the evenings he reads. He studies leadership. He learns communication. He practices discipline. He journals his lessons. And over time, he brings more to the table. He solves bigger problems. He contributes ideas. He leads others. And before long, he's outgrown the job entirely. Maybe the company promotes him. Maybe another company hires him. Maybe he starts his own. But the result is the same. He became more valuable than the job. And the marketplace will always pay for that. Now, here's the danger you can hide inside a job for a while. You can coast. You can do the minimum, collect the paycheck, and think you're safe. But safety is an illusion. Because if the job disappears, what's left? If all you've built is the habit of coasting, then you're in trouble. But if you've built value, if you've invested in yourself, because your future doesn't depend on the company, it depends on you. So let me challenge you, don't measure your worth by your title. Don't measure your worth by your salary. Measure it by the value you bring, the skills you've built, the character you've shaped, the discipline you've practiced. Because those are the things that make you indispensable, not to a boss, but to the marketplace itself. And here's the beautiful part, the more valuable you become, the more options you have. You're no longer trapped by one paycheck, one company, one boss. You can choose, you can negotiate. You can walk into any room with confidence because you know you're bringing something rare, something valuable, something that cannot be ignored. That's what it means to become more valuable than your job. And once you see this, once you start building yourself into someone greater than the position you hold, then you'll realize the final truth, that the goal is not just to make a living, but to design a life. Because life is bigger than a paycheck. It's bigger than a job title. It's about freedom, contribution, growth, and legacy. And that's exactly where I want to leave you next. Now let me leave you with the final and perhaps most important truth of all. Don't just make a living, design a life. Because a living is what pays the bills, but a life is what gives meaning. A living is what keeps food on the table, but a life is what puts joy in your heart. A living is what keeps you busy, but a life is what makes you proud. And the sad truth is, most people never make the leap. They spend 40 years making a living, and one day they look back and realize they never designed a life. They earned wages, but they missed meaning. They survived, but they never really lived. Why is this so critical? Because life will pass you by if you don't take charge of it. The weeks turn into months, the months into years, and the years into decades. And suddenly you wake up and wonder where it all went. And the answer is it went into the job, into the bills, into the routines. There's nothing wrong with working, but work alone is not enough. The goal of work is to create the resources, the freedom, the opportunity to live fully. But if you never pause to design that life, then all you've done is traded your time for money and let your years slip away. So what does it mean to design a life? It means asking bigger questions. What do I want to see? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to become? What contribution do I want to make? What will I leave behind? It means deciding how you want to spend your days, not just how you'll survive them. It means using discipline not just to build a career, but to build a legacy. Because the measure of wealth is not just the size of your bank account, it's the richness of your experiences, the depth of your relationships, the mark you leave on others. Let me give you a contrast. One man spends his life working, clocking in and clocking out, collecting the paycheck, paying the bills, and repeating. He makes a living. Another man uses his work as the platform to build himself, to grow, to invest, to contribute. He saves, he learns, he builds discipline. And when the time comes, he uses his resources to travel, to teach, to give, to experience, to create. One ends with a list of hours worked. The other ends with a life lived. That's the difference. And here's the good news. You don't have to wait until you're wealthy to start designing your life. You can start now. You can decide today that your evenings will be for learning, that your weekends will be for building, that your relationships will be intentional, that your money will be managed with purpose. You can begin with what you have, where you are, and start crafting the life you want. Because the life you want isn't out there somewhere. It's hidden in the disciplines you practice today. So here's the challenge. Don't just let life happen to you. Don't just get through the days, the weeks, the years. Design them. Decide what you want your life to look like. Then use discipline to make it real. Because if you don't design your own life, someone else will design it for you. And I promise you, their design won't be nearly as fulfilling as the one you could create for yourself. And once you catch this idea, once you realize you're not here just to make a living, but to design a life, then everything changes. You stop drifting. You stop waiting. You stop excusing. And you start living intentionally. That's when wealth takes on a whole new meaning. That's when discipline feels like freedom instead of restraint. That's when you stop counting hours and start creating moments. And that, my friend, is the ultimate reward of becoming more valuable than your job. You become more valuable to life itself. So here we are at the end of our time together. We've walked through principles, we've told stories, we've looked at laws that govern success, and now the question is, what will you do with it? Because knowledge alone doesn't change a thing. You can nod your head, you can feel inspired, you can even take notes, but unless you put it into action, unless you take tonight and turn it into discipline tomorrow, then nothing changes. The whole purpose of this message is not to entertain you, it's to wake you up to the possibility that your life could be far more than just wages, far more than just bills, far more than just hours on the clock. The goal is not just to make a living, the goal is to design a life. Let's remind ourselves what we've covered. We began with the law of the marketplace. You don't get paid for time, you get paid for value. And the only way to increase your income is to increase yourself. Then we looked at the difference between formal education and self-education. School may give you a living, but self-education will give you a fortune. That's why you must keep reading, keep studying, keep journaling, keep learning. We talked about working harder on yourself than you do on your job, because your income will never exceed your personal development. We explored philosophy, the set of the sail, and how the same winds blow on us all. But it's your thinking, your choices, your philosophy that determine where you arrive. We looked at the role of skills, the tools that multiply your effort and make you more valuable. Then, we entered the realm of habits, the daily disciplines. Small disciplines practiced every day, separate success from failure. A few pages read, a few dollars saved, a few calls made, those are the seeds of wealth. We learned the value of time, that time is more precious than money, and that you must get from the day, not just through it. We saw the law of sowing and reaping. What you plant, you will harvest in greater measure later in time. And we saw how associations shape your future, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Finally, we brought it home with character, discipline, and becoming more valuable than your job. Building so much value in yourself that no company, no economy, no circumstance can take it away. And from there, we looked at the highest goal of all, not just to make a living, but to design a life. Now the question is, what will you do with all of this? Because if you leave it here, if you turn off this video and go back to the same routine, the same neglect, the same excuses, then you've wasted the time. But if you decide tonight that this is the turning point, that this is the day you begin to discipline yourself, then everything can change. Because here's the truth. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. You can either pay the small price of discipline today, or you can pay the crushing price of regret tomorrow. And the good news is, you get to choose. So let me give you this affirmation, one I've carried with me for decades, and I hope you'll carry it with you too. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. Because when you become more, you attract more. When you get better, life gets better. When you grow, everything around you grows. That's the law. And here's the challenge. Start tonight. Don't wait. Pick up a book. Write a note in your journal. Choose one small discipline and do it. Read 10 pages. Save $10. Write one goal. Take one action. Just one. Because the great secret of life is that small beginnings compounded over time, produce massive results. Don't underestimate the power of tonight. And if you're ready for the next step, if you want to know how to take the lessons from these principles and turn them into unstoppable momentum, then join me in the next video. Because books and ideas are powerful, but habits are the engine. They're what turn wisdom into wealth and philosophy into results. So, click on that next video and let's keep building together. Because remember, your job will make you a living, but your discipline will make you a fortune. And your fortune, if you choose, can become far more than money. It can become a life, a legacy, a story worth telling.